Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I'm Sir Jimmy of House Nuts. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we're into Catelyn 7 of A Storm of Swords, the Red Wedding. It feels like we've been building up to this for quite literally years, Matt.
Yeah, we have been. And we've been talking about it for the past couple of weeks, being like, wow, we're getting close. We're getting close. We're getting close. We're getting close. Well, we're here. This is it. Arguably my least favorite chapter and my least favorite scene in the entire show. I'm serious. This is the chapter that I struggle reading the most in the chapter and the episode where I watched it the first time, and anytime I've kind of just like rewatched some episodes of Game of Thrones here and there, I skip it. It to me
hurts too bad.
It to me is the hardest moment. I mean, seriously, I think it is for me the hardest moment in the whole series.
Oh, bro, it's frightening to me that now that I've read this chapter, I think 8 or 9 times, however many times I've read it, it still puts a lump in my throat by the end of it. The very end of the chapter when she's getting her hair pulled back, Catelyn's getting her hair pulled back, and she's like, "Oh, don't cut my hair. Ned loves my hair." Oh, bro, it got me. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna cry." I'm actually, and my heart's going with the drums. And also, I mean, we're gonna jump into the chapter, but I just want to say, like, George's writing of the chapter is so good because he does so many things with the show don't tell that like illustrate what's really happening through Catelyn's eyes at the moment, and it's so powerful. It's just excellent writing in many ways. So yeah, I'm with you. It's very hard to read, but I'm always impressed with like how much it affects me years and years and years later, and it reminds me always why this is like my favorite. This is my favorite book of all time. This is my favorite series of all time, and George is probably my favorite writer of all time. So.
Yeah. Well, we got a little bit of news. We're going to talk about George as well, but yeah, I would agree with everything you just said about this chapter. And something interesting, and I want to bring this back up when we get to the chapter, is there's not many chapters where you get a major death from the POV. Right? Like Ned Stark's death is not a POV chapter for Ned.
Yeah.
It's from Arya. And obviously the show, you can, it's a different medium, so you can kind of see it. But yeah, I mean, from here, it is Catelyn's point of view. So a lot to break. We're going to break it all down. We're going to do a big episode here today. So here we are, the Red Wedding. Catelyn listens to the continuous pounding noise of the drums. The musicians are in the hall and playing. She is seated between Ryman Frey and Bruce Bolton during the wedding feast. She remarks to herself how joyless the wedding is and watches as Robb dances with several of the Frey maids, and Edmure dotes on his soon-to-be wife, Rosalind. Catelyn becomes more wary when she learns that Oliver Perwyn and Alexander Frey are not in attendance at the wedding. She notices Merritt Frey trying to drink the Great John under the table, and finally Lord Walder calls for the bedding. Robb does not participate as the Great John carries a weeping Rosalind to the bedchamber. Suddenly, things grow more ominous in the hall as Daisy Mormont goes up to Edwin Frey and asks him if he wants to dance, but he pushes her away violently. The musicians begin to play a new song, and Catelyn recognizes to her horror as the Rains of Castamere and sees Edwin leaving. She takes off after him, and when she grabs his arm, he feels the rings of chainmail beneath. Suddenly, it all makes sense to her. The Freys missing from the wedding and Rosalind crying. The musicians turn out to be crossbowmen, and the wedding becomes a slaughter. Catelyn watches in horror as a crossbow bolt pierces Robb's shoulder and another in his leg as he topples over. Small John throws a table over him to save him from 3 more bolts. Robin Flint is surrounded by the Freys, their daggers rising and falling. Sir Wendell Manderley is felled by a quarrel through the mouth. Small John bludgeons Sir Raymond Frey across the face with a leg of mutton, but when reaches for his sword belt, a crossbow bolt drives him to his knees. Lucas Blackwood is cut down by Sir Hoston Frey. One of the Vances is hamstrung by Black Walder as he wrestles with Sir Harris High. Crossbows take Donald Locke, Owen Norrie, and half a dozen more. Young Sir Benfrey Frey seizes Daisy Mormont by the arm, who smashes him in the face with a wine flagon. She runs for the door, but Sir Ryman comes through with Frey men-at-arms and skins his axe into Daisy's stomach. Northmen begin pounding through the other door as Catelyn takes them for rescue for half a heartbeat until one of them decapitates Small John. Catelyn realizes that she must try to intervene and save her son's life. She sees a dagger on the floor and crawls towards it. Determined to kill Lord Walder, then Robb stumbles to his feet, an arrow in his chest in addition to the other two. Lord Walder, who is in the midst of slaughter, sits on the throne watching greedily, signals a halt to the music, and mocks Robb. Catelyn grabs Jingle Bell Frey and puts a dagger to the halfwit's throat. She begs Walder to spare her son, trade a son for a son, but the old man says that's a grandson, and he was never much use. A man in dark armor and pale pink cloak spotted with blood steps up to Robb, saying Jaime Lannister sends his regards. He thrusts his longsword through Robb's heart and twist. Catelyn keeps her promise and slits the poor halfwit's throat, and then begins to laugh and shout. While someone says she's lost her wits, someone else says, make an end. She is grabbed from behind and feels steel drawn across her own throat.
Yeah, man. I got chills just you reading the summary. It's brutal, and I want to kind of start at the ending here. I think the decision to have Catelyn kill Jingle Bell is the most poignant of it all, actually, because she had to kill him. Right. If we look at that act in isolation, that act is brutal and barbaric and unworthy of someone like Catelyn Stark. However, this entire series to this point, to this chapter, we have been told that Catelyn Stark loves her children, that Catelyn Stark would do anything for her children and for her family, minus Jon Snow. And if she had not slit the throat and shown mercy or anything, it would have almost been a detriment to all the build up to this point. But if you look at it in isolation, she executed someone who is extraordinarily vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of mentioned he's a fool and everything. Like it's kind of a horrible act from Catelyn in isolation, but because of who her character is, she had to do it. She had to. There is no. If George would have had her spare him, it would have honestly been far worse. I think the chapter loses a lot of its impact. Catelyn Stark takes a life after seeing her son die. Like she had to pull that knife across his throat. So that's one of the things that stuck out to me on this reread. And another thing that really stuck out to me is just how uneasy the wedding is. And how it's not very joyous, because in my mind, and I've read it so many times, I always kind of picture it being a 180, but it isn't at all, right? No. There's a gloom over this entire thing. People are acting oddly, and it doesn't feel merry. And whenever he's explaining, George is writing about the atmosphere at the wedding, how you can't, even raise your drink without elbowing someone. It's hot, it smells bad. People have body odor. It's just like this really like almost grotesque scene of humans in a way that it's like almost I don't want to say animalistic, but we'll go with that, like the base level of humanity, like body odor, mm-hmm. being crowded and sweating and gritty and grimy and drinking. Like and we're about to see one of like the most basic human instincts, which is like retaliation and vengeance be explored in the chapter. So I don't know, I think George just sets the stage super well.
Yeah, I'd agree. This is one of his best written chapters by far.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and even from the beginning, I'll jump right to the beginning. The drums were pounding, and her head with them. Pipes wailed and flutes trilled from the musicians' gallery at the floor of the hall. Fiddles screeched, horns blew, and skins skirred in a lively tune, but the drumming drove them all. The sounds echoed off the rafters. Whilst the guests ate, drank, and shouted at one another below, Walder Frey must be deaf as a stone to call this music. Catelyn sipped a cup of wine and watched Jingle Bell prance to the sounds of Alysanne. At least she thought it was meant to be Alysanne. With these players, it might have easily been the Bear and the Maiden Fair, which is also, a deceptive piece, right? So you start off and you get that as well. Outside, the rain still fell, but within the twins, the air was thick and hot. A fire roared, and the hearth and rows of torches burned smokily from the iron sconces on the wall. Yet most of the heat came off the bodies of the wedding guests. There's a nice little piece there as well. Jammed in so thick along the benches that every man who tried to lift his cup poked his neighbor in the ribs. Also, your neighbors are going to be poking you in the ribs with daggers later. Even in the dais, they were closer than Catelyn would have liked. She had been placed between Sir Ryman Frey and Roose Bolton and had gotten a good noseful of both. So Ryman drank as if Westeros was about to run short of wine and sweated it all out under his arms. He had bathed in lemon water, she judged, but no lemon could mask so much sour sweat. Roose Bolton had a sweeter smell to him, yet no more pleasant. He sipped Hippocras in preference to wine or mead, but ate but little. Yeah. I mean, even in those first few paragraphs there, you can see George setting everything up, right? The fact that you've got they could be poked your neighbor in the ribs.
This is not static description. He's describing things for a very specific purpose in the way that he is doing so. Even whenever he describes Roose Bolton's actions and looks, he is actually building out, the Bolton vibe that we're going to get post Red Wedding. So none of this is static. It's all very active.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jimmy, we can go back and talk a little bit about this. Just what were your thoughts reading it this time on what did you pull from this chapter on now? You're I don't know, 7th or 8th time reading this chapter in the series.
Well, I think it really is that the decision at the end to have, as a writer, to have Catelyn slit the throat. I think my whole thing about that is just knowing that that's the perfect moment. And also just being surprised that once again that I feel emotions during this, that my heart rate rises. It's just kind of insane. And I read this fairly often. It's not like, oh, it's been 5 years since I read this. I read it almost every year. And when I do, it always has an effect on me. So that's always impressive. It's kind of crazy to think about this though, Matt. This was the chapter I imagine George set out to write from very early on in the series. I won't say from the inception, but I imagine very close to the beginning of writing this series, he was thinking about this chapter and this scene. And for him to get here and to write it the way he did and deliver is similar to it coming down to the shot clock at 0 and, a LeBron James or a Kobe or Michael Jordan hitting the game winner.
Right. Yeah, I would say that this likely would have been one of when he was originally planning this as a trilogy, right? And then it turned into 5 books, and then it turned into 7. This was still probably always going to be one of the big key moments in the middle of that trilogy, or
I agree. Yeah,
whatever. And so it's kind of interesting to think, because even still, you could even in the idea of this being, it is really the middle point, because this is arguably, I would, for at least everything that takes place in Westeros. So you take Dany out of the situation, take Dany out of the story. Think just kind of block that out for a second. This is arguably the biggest turning point in all of all the books we have so far. This is probably the biggest turning point in all of Westeros.
Yeah, it's the biggest hope crushing moment to feel like all hope is lost, and then the back half of the series building that back up. Now the crazy thing is, Matt, is that not only is the Red Wedding in this book, but the Purple Wedding is as well.
Yeah,
and the fact that George went back to back in the same book, we'll never see it's again. I've read a lot of fantasy books. Okay, I'm not an expert, but I've read a good amount of them. And there's a huge trend of everything's more grim in fantasy since George R. R. Martin did A Song of Ice and Fire. Oh, characters die. And I hear people discount George, all the time with, oh, he just kills off characters. If you can read this book and that's what you take from this, I honestly think that you're not a very good reader. I think your reading comprehension is in the gutter. I think it's in the absolute shitter, because a worse writer, okay, would have said, and at that moment when Catelyn saw the mail, she knew it was over. Someone would have given it away. But we come to the realization of what is happening with Catelyn moment to moment, which is absolutely incredible to do. Literally leading us on each word that comes next. I can think of books on one hand out of the however many I've read at this point, probably over 1,000, right? I can books on one hand that have done that to me. And to boil it down to say that, oh, this is a book that just kills all the characters and it's shock value, I think is grossly underestimating the impact that the craft has, the craft of writing has, and why books are special. We read books for things like this. That's why I read, at least, to feel something, to be out of body, and it does it every single time. I think it's just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. A point I want to pull from this, and this kind of goes to what you were thinking, what you were talking a little bit about, like where she makes the decision to kill Jingle Bells, is the line Jaime Lannister sends his regards.
Oh, what a complex line.
Right, because then it adds so much more to this thing, because I think most people, when you're reading this whole, when you get to the scene, whether you're watching the show or you're reading the books, I feel like so much of this feels like Rob's fault. Right, because Rob is, especially I think more in the show, because in the books Jane Westerling kind of comes out of nowhere. But in the show, he's having the with Talia or whatever her name is, where they kind of sub her in. Like, it's, you see it building, right? We actually get to see that thing building, and he makes the decision knowing that he's promised to another, all of that stuff. So the whole thing feels like it's really Rob's fault. But the line Jaime Lannister sends his regards
The
adds
last thing Rob ever hears.
yeah, it adds so much more to this, actually, that, well, part of this is actually Catelyn's fault.
Well, yeah, and think about Rob's last moments, right? He hears this. Oh, if my mom had just not given up Jaime dead. Like, that is
huge,
heart-wrenching. That is crushing. And then Catelyn goes mad. I mean, she literally just loses it. And I can't blame her. I think in that moment, that's exactly when she's like talking to Ned, like Bran, Rickon, Rob, like, it's like, dude, it is so brutal. It's so brutal, man. Woo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's good. So I see some people on Reddit talking about that line as well, and talking about, so in a Storm of Swords, there is a Jaime chapter where the Jaime and Roose Bolton leave Harrenhal at the same time. So Jaime obviously says both parties left Harrenhal the same morning beneath a cold gray sky that promised rain. Sir Aenys Frey had marched 3 days before, striking northeast for the King's Road. Bolton meant to follow him. The Trident is in flood, he told Jaime. Even at the route before, the crossing will be difficult. You will give my warm regards to your father. So long as you give mine to Robb Stark. That I shall. Jaime.
Yeah, and I remember that line, and I was
Jaime
like,
sticks the Storm of Swords.
Yeah, I said, here in a few weeks, we'll be coming back to that line, and here we are. And also, like, as a reader, right, we are kind of witnessing a turning of sorts with Jaime at this point. I think his redemption arc is really in Feast for Crows, but we absolutely get the groundwork laid here, and we are starting to feel positive things for Jaime, I think, at this point. So that line obviously has something to do with the characters in the story, and we've kind of discussed the complexity of that. But as the reader, it also reminds you that, like, oh, yeah, Jaime is still on the other side of this thing. Man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so good. And like you said, those last moments, like the last moment of Rob and the last moment of, last moment of Rob and the last moment of Catelyn. And you can now tell why they were so pissed that Jane Westerling, right, wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, they were a little offended that wasn't there. And also, they end up losing the Blackfish, right? Blackfish ends up getting out, which is huge piece of Feast for Crows. Do you feel, and I'll bring up the show. So obviously in the show, are we going to call her Jane just for?
I think I'll look it up. I'm pretty sure it's Talia. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's the same character.
She's pregnant,
Rob's
and
wife,
she's there. So she is killed and stabbed in the stomach as she's pregnant. I'm going to be honest with you, Matt. I don't think that changed. So I'm not one of the people that's like, this is too much or whatever. But the scene doesn't actually need that, I don't think. I think that kind of goes into how Dan and Dave really did lean into the shock a bit more. But I don't think this scene in the book loses anything by not having that. If anything, it's a little more interesting, the fact that Jane is alive.
Yeah, it's Talicia, actually.
Talicia. I couldn't remember. I always
she's not important. Yeah. No, I don't think it loses anything. In fact, actually, I think it's I mean, they're both good. There's way more to add to the story for her potentially being pregnant and winter
it's
and all
more
that
interesting.
Stuff. There's way more to it in the books. I don't because I don't know that. I mean, it's so hard to tell because we don't know where that's going to go. But
Right.
and maybe that's supposed to be a 5-year time jump thing, right? Where she has the baby and now the baby could become king and all of that. So even George maybe went back and rethought that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for
We
sure.
don't know. That seems like where it's ultimately heading. But yeah, I think they're both good. I think her dying adds more to the impact of the show, but ultimately did it affect anything in the show? No, I don't think so. I don't think it was a negative it affected anything negatively in the show. If anything, I think it
Yeah, I'm
added.
not mad they did it, but I also could hear an argument that like it wasn't really necessary. Like I can hear that argument because I think even without that in the show, it still would have been amazing. Because let's be honest, the actress for Catelyn Stark, I can't remember her name. I mean, that's one of the all-time best scenes on
Oh, yeah, yeah,
television.
yeah. Oh,
What a
I'm like,
performance!
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then what's her name? Who Rob Starr's wife is like Charlie Chaplin's granddaughter or whatever. And if you actually
What, really?
if you look at photos of them side by side, you're like, oh yeah,
Wait, really?
yeah,
Oh, Chuck Chaplin?
yeah. Her name is Ona Chaplin. Yeah, but
Interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah, if she had survived in the show, I don't would it have made
I
a
mean, not with the endpoints that we got, right?
big
Like, not.
difference? It really would have ultimately hurt Sansa's story, right? Because now it's like, oh, well, now there is a Stark.
Well, it depends if you like where Sansa stories went, because I didn't. I
You didn't
like.
like that? I actually thought that was okay. I like that where she's queen in the north and she's
I'm fine with that. I don't like the Ramsey stuff at all.
oh yeah,
I
yeah,
hate
yeah.
all of that shit. That shit
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah, I don't yeah, obviously, yeah, I didn't
That
like
was one of
that.
the things in the show, like that I didn't like earlier on. Like I know everyone said it all fell apart in season 7, 8, but I remember when this was happening, I was like, mm-mm, I don't like this.
Yeah, that whole thing, in all honesty, just a real quick criticism of the show here. That is one of the things it makes Littlefinger just seem dumb.
y-
It
yeah,
just
it doesn't seem to line up with
and
his.
that's one of the best things about the books, right? Is that Littlefinger does not make that mistake of
Nope.
sending Sansa to because that was like even in the while I was watching the show, I was like it just it totally justifies them killing Littlefinger, and she's like, "You sent me there," and it's
Yeah.
especially after she like gets power over him, and she's like, "Well, I'll tell people about the Moon Door and stuff." Yeah, that I think that's a lot of people really just point to season 8 and stuff like that. And sometimes people point to the cracks in the show of not having, but I think that is arguably one of the worst moments in the show for Littlefinger's character. And it totally just shows they had no idea what to he was the first character where you could tell they had no idea what to do with.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it also robs a ton from Sansa's character. Like Sansa could have been doing almost anything else, you know. So for me, again, it's not the worst thing that she gets killed here in the show, but I just think the book way of doing it's just more interesting
Yeah, the
overall.
fact because the fact that she's not there, it gives you actually a little bit of hope coming out of this whole thing, right? Like
Yeah,
what
and George is
and
building towards hope, by the way. A lot of
and
people say it's all about nihilism in this shit. No, it's not. No, it's not.
yeah. So here's something, right? So when she is at the end, when she is crawling, like she calls for mercy. Catelyn cried, but the horns and drums, clash of steel smothered her plea. Um, you see Daisy get an axe in the stomach. It kind of continues on here. There was a dagger on the floor a few feet away. Perhaps it had been skittered there when the small John knocked the table off its trestles, or perhaps it had fallen from the hands of some dying man. Catelyn crawled towards it. Her limbs were leaden, and the taste of blood was in her mouth. I will kill Walder Frey, she told herself. Jingle Bell was closer to the knife, hiding under the table. I will kill the old man. I can do that much at least. So,
Maybe she will.
do you think it's more likely, and we've we talked about this, that Arya is the one who kills all them, or that Catelyn is the one who kills
Catelyn.
Walder Frey?
I think it's Catelyn. I think Catelyn is going to. There's a lot of setup and feast to illustrate the fact that there's probably going to be like some sort of like redemption at her wedding, like revenge at her wedding, like a Red Wedding 2.0, where the
Mm-hmm.
Freys get it. And I do believe that Catelyn will be involved some way in his death. I don't think it'll be Arya. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I
because
don't hate if it's Arya. I wouldn't mind if it's Arya.
I think a lot of that stuff that happens, and this is and I mean, there's so many pieces to it, right? But to me, and this is the thing I've talked about for years, is I think Clegane Bowl is happening earlier, which, you try to look at some of the routes the show went. All that stuff with the Brotherhood Without Banners and the Hound, none of that stuff is happening in the books.
Yeah.
Because it seems more likely that she's going to build up a bigger Brotherhood Without Banners army that's going to have some significance to it.
I mean, that's kind of what's happening, right? And they're going after people. That people are disappearing. And we know that George has hinted the fact that Jane would make an appearance in the prologue of Winds of Winter. We don't know if that's still the case, but he hinted at that. And I wonder if Jane Westerling's going to see her should have been mother-in-law, which would be wild.
Yeah. And if she's pregnant, or I don't think she's going to blame her or anything.
Could you imagine
she
if
could
the
kind of
Winds opens up and Jane's pregnant, like confirmed?
I think she has to be.
Otherwise, I think she is. I think she is.
Yeah, there's no point of even bringing her back. Like that's the whole reason. There's no point in her. That's why the show did what it did. Is because they knew they weren't going to go in any route in which the Talicia, his wife in the show, was pregnant and it had any impact. So George obviously kept her alive for a reason.
Oh,
and
for
that
sure.
That reason has to be that she's pregnant. Now, whether she loses the child and it's meant to be even more dread that, hey, the Starks are really dead and there's nothing, right? And then it comes back to Bran or Sansa or Arya or whoever.
And Jaime is really worried about this, by the way. And Feast, yeah. I think it's Feast. He's like, if she gets out, that's a bigger deal than Blackfish or Edmure. Like, she's the one we can't lose. And of course, the Freys are going to fuck it up, right? Like they're going to do a terrible job.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it has to come back to bite the Freys in the end. Her character and everything. So yeah, I think ultimately she's going to be pregnant. Is she going to have the baby before the end? I don't think so, because I mean the baby could be born and maybe this baby will be. Maybe, I don't know how they're gonna do that. Maybe if Bran becomes king and Sansa doesn't become, say, queen in the north, then maybe this baby will be the king and Sansa serves as queen regent until the baby comes of age.
Something like that, yeah. I mean, that's totally possible. But
at that point, no, I guess that would still be the true heir, right? Because that would be Ned Stark's grandson. Because Ned Stark to Robb to his son outweighs Rickon.
Right? I think.
Right.
I'm not very good at the
it's a straight line unless like something happens.
Yeah, which lots has happened.
Right. So, but if Bran becomes king, then and the baby is not born, then Rickon would be, by sort of law and custom, the new heir.
Okay. That makes sense. So this kid is obviously super important. Like
really
very, very
important.
for
sure. Yeah.
I think is going to exist, by the way. I do think would exist.
Oh yeah, I agree. Okay, let's we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things here at the end of the chapter here. So, like you said, she presses the blade deeper into Jingle Bell's throat. The liquid rolled his eyes at her in a mute appeal. Which, by the way, a mute appeal is about to be what she is. She's about to be mute in a way, right? She's gonna have to cover her own throat. The foul stench assailed her nose, but she paid no more mind to it. And then she did the sullen, ceaseless pounding of that drum. Boom, doom, boom, doom, boom, doom. And that drum, which had started, right, was continuing on. And Catelyn, even here at the end of it, I think she knows she's going to die, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like all that is, but she did not care. She had lived too long, and Ned was waiting. It was Robb she feared for. Oh, my honor as a Tully, she told Lord Walder. On my honor as a Stark, I will trade your boy's life for Robb's, a son for a son. And I think she just knows that he's not gonna.
Oh, it's a Hail Mary.
Yeah, because he's already abandoned the gift of what I forget what it's called, house right or whatever. I don't know why I'm blanking on it today, but essentially, right, where he's your guest and
you're breaking bread, you're safe.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, and then a man in dark armor and pale pink cloak spotted with blood stepped up to Rob. Jaime Lannister sends his regards. That is Roose Bolton. But yeah, and then they keep doing that boom, doom things. It hurts so much, she thought. Our children, Ned, all our sweet babies, Rickon, Bran, Arya, Sansa, Rob. Rob, please, Ned, please make it stop. Please make it stop hurting. The white tears and red ones ran together until her face was torn and tattered. The face that Ned had loved. Catelyn Stark raised her hands and watched the blood run down her long fingers over her wrist, beneath the sleeves of her gown. Slow red worms crawled along her arms and under her clothes. It tickles, and that made her laugh until she screamed. Mad, someone said, she's lost her wits. And someone else said, make an end. A hand grabbed her scalp, just as she done with Jingle Bell, and she thought, no, don't cut my hair. Ned loves my hair. Then the steel at her throat, and it was a bite with red and cold.
Red and cold. Yeah. What a description on that, huh?
Yeah.
But you see, he's not saying anything. Like in that moment, Catelyn knew she was done. Or like such plain
right.
language.
It just is the act.
It's her POV. It's truly her POV in what would be the worst moment of her entire life and the last moments of her entire life. It takes a lot of skill to write that way and to deliver it, make it satisfying and kind of let us sit with the last period of the chapter. We sit there and we just stare at the page like, wait, what? Like you're like, what just happened? Is this a metaphor? Please tell me it's some weird metaphor.
Yeah. Let me read a quote here. This is from the Song of Ice Fire reread subreddit, commenting on it, saying he has Ned's gift for inspiring loyalty. Is there a chapter which has more music in it than Catelyn 7? From drums and fiddles and bagpipes to bawdy songs, the music serves as an introduction to that most ominous of songs, the Rains of Castamere. The reader is beautifully prepared for this moment, with the song having been discussed by Tyrion and later Sir Jaime Lannister in A Storm of Swords. It's even mentioned again in Arya 7. Tom Seven Strings replaced a string on his wooden harp and sang the mother tears when Willem's wife was wet. Lord Hart rode out on a rainy day, and then the Rains of Castamere. Most importantly, Arya 7 includes the lyrics of the song, which in Catelyn 7 will be intertwined with the massacre that is proceeded over by Wald Frey. His chair was black oak, and it's black carved in the semblance of two stout towers joined by an arched bridge, so massive that its embraced turned to the old man into a grotesque child. This reference is a curious one, since it takes us back to Walder Frey's debut in the Mystery Knight. Lord Walder of the Crossing was a lean man, elegant in blue and gray. His hair, a chinless boy of 4 whose nose was dripping snot. Says Catelyn's chapter was not an easy one to read. Walder's cruel gibes directed to the dying king still affect me, even on a 4th reread. And then they get to Greywind, which is even more tough. Is even more tough. That is one of the that's it. When they have the wolf hat on the spike.
I mean, we're not through it yet. Yeah, there's still more treachery to go.
Yeah, we still have more to go and next week too.
Man.
It's a tough one, man. I think to me it's the toughest chapter to read in the whole series.
Yeah, and also, it's one of those things where a lot of work was put in to make us feel this way. It didn't just happen. These characters are people that we feel like we know, and I guess in some cases love. Some of us get frustrated with them, of course, but you don't just get the shock value is one thing, but the impact is earned. I believe.
Yeah. Now, this could kind of take us to a fun thing to hear, as a lot of people think Rob dies twice by warging into Greywind, and then Greywind dies. Do you think that's
no? But it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't do anything. So like people can believe that. That's fine.
Right.
It's not the case. I don't think, but maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. If Robin had Greywind in there with him, would it have changed? I don't think it really would have changed much.
I think Walder Frey thought so, and that's why he said you got to leave that damn dog outside.
Certainly some more people would have died. Maybe he would have been able to get out of there, but
I mean, you only need a couple seconds to dash out that door.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think he probably would have been killed out there too. But yeah, I mean, Walder Frey thought it was a big enough threat, and Walder Frey, if anyone's going to mess anything up, it'd be him. So I do think that it would have made some difference.
Yeah. So ultimately, the Red Wedding, whose fault? Who does the blame lie on the most?
Oh, bro, ugh. Ah, man, I don't know. Ned Stark.
Do
Ned.
you think more? Do you think the blame should lie more on Robb or more on Catelyn?
I mean, are we victim blaming? Is that what we're doing here? Are we victim
Well, I
blaming?
mean, it's just that's the thing is everyone talks about. Well, if everyone goes down the what if path of if the Red Wedding hadn't
It's
happened or
Robb.
all
It's Robb.
you think Robb more than
It's
Catelyn?
Robb. Yeah. Yeah. Robb doesn't, if Robb doesn't cross Frey, I don't think Frey does this.
As long as he marries his daughter, everything.
That's all Frey wanted. And Robb made a decision, and that decision as a leader has a lot of weight and responsibility behind it. And he messed up.
Robb also is the one who lets Theon go take the North, which makes them have to try to turn back.
Yeah, I think Robb is at fault here. Yeah. Hate to say about my boy. I hate speaking ill of the dead.
But Catelyn let Tyrion go, and Catelyn let Jaime go, and
Cat. I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, you could almost blame Liza Aaron.
Right, I know.
We can keep rolling this back. It's a butterfly
I'm
effect,
sure you could, but I mean, this whole thing I think comes down to their decisions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
is who it ultimately comes down to. Is much more. It's really Catelyn and Robb's story.
It is, and I think because we can pinpoint like the phrase or what makes this happen, right? It's a pivotal piece of
the Boltons. The Boltons are just as complicit in it.
Well,
and if Jaime Lannister is never there to make a deal with Roose Bolton and Harrenhal because they still have him captive.
Hey, I'll tell you what, man. How about this? Now, this is a big
because maybe Robb could have still married Jane Westerling if they had a Jaime Lannister captive, and they don't take him to the wedding. They have him off somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
you kill them, then maybe the Lannisters aren't as quick to push on. Let's make this deal and kill all the
but
Starks.
It all comes back to Robb making this mistake.
I don't know. I think you could make the argument that it all comes back to Catelyn.
Well, I tell you what, you might be right, and I'll tell you why. There's a key difference between the show and the books. Okay, in the book, at the beginning in a Game of Thrones, Catelyn wants Ned to go to King's Landing. Ned doesn't want to go. In the show, they flip it. Ned wants to go. Catelyn doesn't want him to go.
Right.
And kind of like the begrudging, like, something's off here. But in the book, which is what we're talking about, Catelyn tells Ned he needs to go.
Yeah.
If Ned refuses Robert, we probably don't get any of this, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it is all Catelyn's fault. I just think even down the decision line, though, like,
I mean, they're both. I mean, they're both. It might just be that it's 50-50.
I mean, this is why this is so fun to talk about and still relevant many, many years later, is because it is just like history. When we look back, and sure, let's say World War I, right? The assassination. Okay, that's what sparked it. But was it?
No,
or
there's
a lot of going on, right? There's a lot of people to look at.
There's so much more that goes into World War One.
George was building a complete web of this. I mean, how many houses are involved in this thing? It's kind of insane when you think about the scale of the Red Wedding, and then the end result feels so intimate with Catelyn at the end. But it's a massive geopolitical.
Here's a fun what if. What if the Purple Wedding happens first? You could still exist that the Red Wedding takes place second. Because does the Purple Wedding? Because the Purple Wedding seems like it's happening no matter like, regardless of what happens to the Red Wedding, the Purple Wedding is taking place because the Tyrells are like, yeah, we're not going to be marrying Joffrey.
Honestly, it might have tipped Catelyn and Robb off to not feel so comfortable at a wedding.
Yeah.
Now you could
I
say,
don't
well,
know.
the
It could make them feel more confident. Because now they feel like the war is mostly over because there's so much chaos down there. The Red Wedding actually might not happen.
Well, let's say, does Walter turn coat? Does he back off?
Probably not, because he probably thinks that the Lannisters aren't as powerful as they thought, because now they're in total turmoil. Because I don't think the Purple Wedding happens because the Red Wedding happened, right? Like it's not
no.
It's not like, oh, look, the Starks are out and now it's our time to strike now. That the Purple Wedding is happening regardless of what happens here.
I will also say this. I don't think Joffrey Baratheon dying is anywhere near as relevant to the war effort than Robb Stark dying.
For sure.
Like, honestly, the Lannisters are probably in a better position with Joffrey dead. So I'm not so sure the Starks would feel this like we're have the upper hand, because like if anything, someone more capable like Tywin can, I mean, obviously Tywin's regent, whatever, but like you know what I'm saying. Like, Joffrey's a detriment.
It might have even ended the war.
Maybe.
Because especially because a lot of people blame Sansa for it. Sansa and Tyrion are the one. I mean, but like a lot of because they don't really ever like announce to the people who did it, right? But it's a lot of people think Sansa because she fled, right? Like townsfolk people think that. So common folk, right? So I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about all the different.
Would Baelish have taken Sansa back to Catelyn?
Maybe.
Shoot, that's interesting to think about.
Yeah, because to me the Purple Wedding, I think is regardless of what happens here, is happening. We're like 100%, no question.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
Yeah,
and then I mean it kind of affects Tyrion a little bit more.
Oh yeah, I mean that's kind of the big moment for him. We're talking about turning points. I mean, for Tyrion, it's the biggest.
Yeah, because I mean even the Red Wedding is pretty important to Tyrion, because now they're really pushing. Now they're really pushing on him to get Sansa pregnant.
And then marriage,
goes up in flames with Shay and everything, and
ends up
saying it's why it's arguably the single most important moment in the entire series.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
In terms of total like global impact, I think it has to be number one.
Yeah, I would agree. It's the biggest geopolitical event at this point.
Yeah, because it literally affects.
I mean, we could go back, right? Like we could go back, like Robert's Rebellion, then
for sure, and we're talking about like Rebellion, but in the main, A Song of Ice and Fire series. Yes. Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's probably the most important.
I agree.
Okay. Ooh, all right, man. Anything else you want to hit on this?
We made it. We did it, and the fact that we still have so much more to go. Yeah,
we really have one more Red Wedding chapter, and that's next week.
And then it's off to the next climax of this absurd book.
Yeah, there's got to be some Daenerys chapters coming up, right? I mean, I believe so. I know the next week is an Arya chapter where we get the final fallout, and we get the spikes in the head, and it's like the least favorite part of the whole series. And then then we go to Tyrion, then Davos, then there's a Daenerys chapter coming. But see, that's my thing about Daenerys chapters is when I'm looking at the thing here, the last Daenerys chapter was 42. You don't have another Daenerys chapter until 57. After that, the next one isn't even until 71.
Yeah.
He almost should have just written these as like separate books.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's all one is like,
I know, it's insane. That's the biggest. It gets much better in Dance of Dragons once other people are over in Essos, but the Daenerys chapters, especially in Game of Thrones, you can almost read them, and that's why they did published that one thing where it's literally almost you could just read the Daenerys chapters by themselves. Yeah. All right. Well, I think next week we might try to do have a Patreon episode out as well. I have a pretty fun little theory we're gonna dive into. Somebody who pretty much called one for one like almost everything that would happen going before season 5 of Game of Thrones. Just kind of fun to look into that and see what people were thinking. So, but with that, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. Our next episode will be discussing A Storm of Swords, chapter 52, Arya 11.
And if you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com or bendthekneepodcast.com.
We'll see you next time. And remember that winter is coming.